Today's 1 hour webinar is entitled Tips from a CEO: Keys to Financially Sustainable Christian Publishing. In a world where people read less, some Christian publishers are growing and thriving. How does a publishing ministry last for 50 years? This is what our presenter, Stéphane Kapitaniuk, will be sharing with us today. He is the CEO of BLF Éditions, a ministry which seeks to fuel a passion for God in the French-speaking world by creating and distributing gospel-centered resources. He is based in France. So, Stéphane, tell me about a current project that you are working on.
Yeah. Hi, Heather. I'm glad to be with you guys. And hi to Joel. I saw that Joel's there from Sweden, personal guest since I invited him. It's nice to see you there. Yeah, we're working on tons of books, about 20 books a year. Our major, let's say, non-child book, it always sounds weird to talk about adult book, but is a local author in Paris who's going to be writing, who's finished her book on how to make the most of your small group, your cell group, both as a leader and as a attendee. And so very practical. It can help all Christians. And we're going to have like a 3 to 5 week launch. So there's lots and lots of work. But we're really happy to have the first one by a French-speaking author to our knowledge in the last 50 years. So there's a few
Wow.
books on small groups in French, but that's one of the things that we do a lot of is French authors. So we're happy to have that coming out soon.
That's fantastic. Great to hear that. Well, we're really glad to have you here with us today. You can go ahead and share your screen and get started on your presentation.
Absolutely. So you've got to confirm that you're seeing it. And you're seeing the wrong one, aren't you now?
Yep. We
We
were
tried
seeing the
this.
right one just a second ago.
Yeah, we tried the right one. We tried it 10 minutes ago and it was good. Let me just try here if I can switch here.
There
This
you
is better,
go.
right?
Now
All
you're
right,
good.
let's do that. All right. So, hi everyone. My name is Stéphane. I'm a French American, and I've been almost my entire life in France, but I've traveled a little bit as a teen when I was working with Operation Mobilization. And for the last 7 years, I've come back to BLF Editions, where I actually grew up because it was started by my grandfather, who was a Bible smuggler. And so he, didn't write a famous bestseller or anything, but he started a print shop. And this print shop turned into a print shop, not just for the communist countries, but for actually the French-speaking churches in France, Belgium, Switzerland. And then he started serving, yeah, Ukraine and the Soviet countries directly with a print shop over there. So then we really started focusing only on the French-speaking world. And then from that point onwards, about 20 years ago, we started publishing. So I kind of cheated when Ramon contacted me and congratulated us for 50 years. Well, it's 50 years of the ministry. We published our first books. It's true, very early on, but it was for like Russian and Ukrainian and Polish. And then the French ministry started 20 years ago. But yeah, I'd be happy to share a few things with you in the hour that we have. I thought it'd be good to start with why listen. This can always be a bit of a cringe moment, right? Because in the end, if I talk of any success, I know there's tons of people that do the right things and that will have not the same results. So a large measure of what we do is God allowing perfect timing, the perfect meeting with the perfect author for the perfect time and that sort of stuff. So it's really grace what we've lived in the last 7 years. But I think there are quite a few reasons beyond that to think, no, there's something going on. And I think a lot of lessons we can share. So here are a few. So 50 years is quite a milestone. Anything that survives 50 years is already noteworthy. And just like a car would have its first, usually a car in the first months, if it's brand new, that's where it has its highest chance of having some sort of, deficiency, failure, because it hasn't been tested yet. When you've got a secondhand car that you've been using for 10, 20 years, it usually lasts quite a while. Yeah, BLF has learned a few lessons. We came close to death a few times, so there's still plenty to learn, but I think there's a good reason to listen to something that's been around for 50 years. We've actually known both donor funding and being self-funded. So whether you are a publisher who is already self-funded, whether you are raising funds, I think it'll be useful to you. We're actually small. I think that's another reason. I think most of us here in the room are from small publishing houses. If you're from a big one, well, welcome. But I'm surprised because, I mean, I'm speaking from a small publishing house perspective. At a lowest point in 2019, when we went through a big crisis, we were down to 2 salaried members. And now we're back up to 15, and then actually 25 if you count, depending on how you count some of the freelancers and how many hours they have to do per week to count in the team or not. So yeah, we've seen a lot of growth, but we are still small. So that can also be, I think, more relevant to wherever you are at in ministry. I think also it's worth taking lessons from what we've been doing, because we're a small market, arguably quite a small market. Our confession of faith is the Gospel Coalition France, or the Francophone Gospel Coalition Confession of Faith. So it's quite reform, quite niche in a sense, and yet we've been growing. We've tripled sales in 7 years. Now, sales is not everything, okay? We'll talk about that in this webinar, but sales is a measure of impact in ministry, and we're happy to see that. We've gone from 600,000 euros in sales in 2019 to this year we should be over 2 million. So that's quite a measure. It's been messy. It's been crazy. We're often wondering, man, have we taken on too much? But I think you'll find it interesting. And then finally, no matter what your situation is, except maybe for authors, and even for authors, I think there's stuff to learn. But for all publishers, we are really in all formats. So we sell direct to bookstores, we sell direct to big distributors, for example, for the Catholic market. We sell direct to consumer. We do book stalls. We have a secondhand bookstore online, the only one in the French-speaking world. We have our own Kindle-like app, our own Audible-like app. We are big into blogging. We have a major Christian blog, YouTube channels, our own online school now for the last 6 months. So tons of things that are going on. And I think that means even if you're just in 1 or 2 of these channels, you'll find it interesting. And then final, we have been on a 5-year push to publish half of all of our non-children titles as Francophone authors. So we don't speak of French authors because Francophone countries are like 20 countries in the world. So whether you're from French-speaking Canada, Belgium, Congo-Kinshasa, we are trying to publish French authors. And so if you're trying to do local authors, that's also something interesting. There's some very big surprises that we've had publishing local authors in the last few years. So just a word of intro. Ramon, when he invited me, gave me a lot of freedom. He said, yeah, speak of the lessons learned in the past 50 years. And then as a follow-up, he's like, yeah, and focus on the finances. And I'm like, well, okay. So I've done this as I think would be most useful for you publishers. And then if I've missed stuff, just tell me in the question and answer time, and we can definitely try to talk about the other stuff. I'm most excited about building a great team and a good self-sustaining business. The financial part is not the most exciting thing to me, but I'm going to focus on 2 financial documents that I think all companies, all publishers need to really be good at mastering. So you'll see how I put things together here in a second. And just as final word of intro, I didn't invent anything. I have read tons of books, and I will recommend at least one. And then I've had a coach since I applied for the job of CEO. I've been back here at BLF for 7 years, but became CEO 5 years ago. Tim Thornborough, who did a webinar a couple years ago with MAI, has been my coach all these years. He's an incredible teacher, very, very good webinar that you can watch with a better title than mine, I'd say. His title was from first book to balanced books, a webinar in the archive. So go and look at that. But he's been very, very generous, and lots of the stuff that we've put in place is actually stuff that he taught us, that documents that he shared. So yeah, let's get started. We have 60 minutes together, 40 of them being the lecture, and then 20 minutes of interaction. So I will try to go straight to the point. I went ahead and added a few of our lessons learned that will encourage you. So I sorted them based on that. And then I will focus on the 5 keys of financial sustainability with a focus on the 2 that are more financial, really. But I'll argue that they're all 5 of them financial, even though most people would not think of them as financial. And I'll explain why. And then final question and answer time. So let's go. And don't hesitate to interrupt, Heather, if there are specific questions already on something that I was not clear on. I really don't mind interaction during the presentation part.
Okay,
so
no problem. Yep.
First thing, a few big discoveries that will encourage you. Let's start with some true or false. These are the things that I discovered as we started. Is publishing truly novelty driven? So when I came back in 2019 into book publishing, I was a pastor. Before that, yeah, everyone was saying, man, if you do not publish new books, you are toast. No one will know you. Your books won't be seen anymore. And I was actually surprised that it's not as true as you'd think. So I'm going to say this is the true and false one. It is true that you need to have something to talk about. So there is a push on having a new book allows you to talk about your ministry, talk about everything that goes along with the new book, the old books, the connected subjects, and so on. However, really, it's not been near as true as I thought. Why? Because you have if you've published other books, have they really gotten the visibility that they needed, that they deserved? There's tons and tons of books in the back catalog, and we've done some tests where we stopped publishing a books for 3 months, and our sales don't drop. So that was interesting testing. We also have if you don't publish new books, you can focus on the old ones and put them more in the front in your emails. You can talk about old books, and most people don't even know that it's an old book. We also took some of the oldest books that we thought were amazing and that had totally flopped. We rebranded them, to take a technical, like a very corporate word. We gave them new titles, new covers, put them out, and sometimes we'd have 1,500 copies sold in the first year with almost no cost except a meeting to plan a new title and 300 euros for a cover. So publishing is not as novelty driven as you think, as I thought. And so that's, I think, a relief for many of us, where we think, oh, we have to publish more. When I took over in 2019 and officially in 2021, I was just an interim CEO for 2 years. So I'll always talk about 2019, okay? But when we took over, we just lowered the number of titles that we came out. Why? Because it's your biggest cost as well, as you'll see, and that's a financial decision. The more new titles you print, the more cost you incur. I realize also that I'm speaking to many people that might have English as a second or third language. Maybe Heather and Mia can help there if ever anyone's questioning. I'm sorry, I have not thought about that, and that's where it'd be amazing to see your faces if I go too quick. I will try to slow down maybe a little bit. Second, true and false. Is it true that no one can sell your books like you can? I think that's a pretty obvious one. I chose this one. I could also, in the French, really would talk about bookstores in this question. Is in France, bookstores are almost holy. They're almost like an endangered species that must be protected at all costs. And so it was really seen poorly that we sold books on our website. And during the pandemic, we started selling more direct to consumer because all the bookstores were closed. And it's been amazing to do that, because no one can sell the books like you do. You know why you chose this book, why you thought it would deserve to be published into your language, into your country. It's absolutely true that you are the best evangelist for that title. And so I think it's really sad if you only entrust it to the bookstores or only entrust it to a distributor. Do all of it, but do also direct to consumer. Is it true that there are more readers out there than you think? So, if you take our case, you could argue that people that have the Confession of Faith of the Gospel Coalition Francophone is maybe less than 100,000 people, even though there's a million evangelicals. But actually, we found that there's so much more readership out there than you think. And I think that's actually the case in all countries. I think France is maybe more blessed there with more evangelicals, with quite a good awakening right now of Christians. But even in very small countries, don't limit yourself to just your niche, just the Pentecostals in this place, just the charismatics, just the Baptists. No, think what timely truth do we have that would be helpful to everyone? Yeah, you don't have to hide your convictions, but what timely truth would be good for everyone? And there's many more readers out there than you think. Um, so, for example, we grew our email list from 2019 to 2025 from 6,000 to 40,000 emails. And that's amazing. Great. You think, wait, do I have 40,000 of like, do I have half of all my readership? If there's only 80,000 maybe people that have the same confession of faith as us? No, I have Catholics in my email list. I have Pentecostals in my email list. So I'm not going to necessarily change my confession of faith, but they're also interested in tools on how to better study the Bible. They're also interested in books for their kids and so on. So there are many more readers out there than you think. And you don't need to have to sell out on your confession of faith to actually bless much more widely than you think. And then maybe my final one is, can local authors beat Christian celebrities? Or here I put it as a negative, local authors can't beat American Christian celebrities. Is that true? Do I have to translate the American celebrities to have a bestseller or not? I would argue it is absolutely false. So I'm sure there are a few celebrities that if you were to translate them into your country, it would work. But honestly, no one can be as available for a book launch as a local author. So I'm a big John Piper fan, for example, if you've ever heard of him, a very modest, simple little man, but who's such a joyful preacher of the good news. And he's not available to come and attend our webinars and help us visit bookstores and do conferences in France. He's got a full-time ministry in America already. Whereas we did a discipleship book by a French author, for example. This is our best seller in the last 3 years. And we did an online course with the author that was given away for free for everyone that pre-ordered the book. We did conferences. We had webinars. He did many guest interviews and articles, and we sold in the last 3 years 25,000 copies of the big book and thousands more of the pocket edition that came out later. And so, why did that work? Well, actually, it's because he's not a celebrity, but it's a really good book, and he was available for weeks on end to be available to teach and offer classes to the pastors on discipleship and toolkits and all sorts of goodies and bonuses that people wanted to buy to be able to better apply the lessons and the teaching of the book and the online course. So I totally think local authors can beat celebrity authors that you translate. So give it a try. It is more expensive. Okay, let's be clear about it. It is more expensive to do a local author than a translation. It sounds counterintuitive, but imagine how much would it cost you to do the dubbing, so the audio translation of a Disney film. Well, it'd cost a lot of money, but it'd be way cheaper than to make your own Disney film. Well, publishing a local author is a bit like making your own Disney film with your own drawings and your own story. You don't know if it's going to be good at the end. So it's a lot of work invested. So it's scary. Start with small books, but then you have a local teacher who can be an influence, can be a spokesperson for this topic and for his book, and be available for many years to the local church as a teacher and writer. So yeah, that's my few big discoveries that I think are directly relevant to you. Let's move to the financial part of this afternoon. So the 5 keys of financial sustainability, you'll see that some are directly financial terms, and then some of them are not. I'll argue that they're all interrelated. So first, you need to know the real cost of what you're doing. That can be the cost of a book. That is definitely the cost by type of book. So for example, when we took over with a new team in 2019 for BLF, we broke down the costs of children's books, translations, and local authors. And then we broke it down further, said, well, actually, there is a huge difference between a 100-page book and a 300-page book when we translate it or a local author. So let's actually say you've got kids' books, you've got that are all translation because it's super expensive to pay an illustrator. And then you've got small translations, big translations, small French authors, and big, more than 200-page Francophone authors. And we started on kids' books and little translations because it allowed us to reiterate quickly every time we realized our translation wasn't good enough. We only lost a bit of money on that translator or on this process rather than spending tens of thousands on this massive book and having to redo it. So we had to know the cost of a book individually, but then we actually divided it by types of books to really know the costs. And we are going to look at a book budget together. Then you also need to know the cost of business, because I think many of us, and I'm supposing that most of us here, if you're actually kind of new in publishing, are totally underpricing the books that you're selling. So when you bring a book out and you look at it and you're like, okay, it's going to be 280 pages, small pocket format. What price do I sell it? And you're going to be basing yourself often on what other books are on the market, or many, I think, want to underprice and say, oh, let's be even cheaper. Well, you actually need to start the other way. You actually have to know the costs of that book. You need to know the extra secret costs or the hidden costs that are there. So let's look at that, okay? And this is where the slideshow will not work in the same way. And I'm going to put the Excel spreadsheet up quickly for you guys. So here we go. So normally we're all good.
Yeah, coming through well.
Okay, so this is a template. At the end, I'll give my email address, and I'm happy to give it to anyone who sends me a little note saying who they are, what you do as a publishing ministry, and then I'll send you the template, the 2 templates that I'll present here. So this first one is essential to know the cost of a book. Okay, so this was in large part, I think, the Good Book Company that shared us tips, and we already had something before that as well. So it's kind of a hybrid of those models. And so what you're wanting to do is think of everything to have the actual permission to price the book based on what it's actually costing you, because otherwise you'll always underestimate the actual cost because you're like, oh no, I want the book to be less than $10. Well, can it be less than $10? Someone has to pay for the book, and either you're going to charge the full price to the readers, or you're going to have to raise funds for it. But you can't raise funds if you don't know the true costs, right? Or you shouldn't. You should at least do some of the quick math. So this is actually a really easy document. The first seconds you might think, oh, it's a lot of stuff. All the yellow fields are what you have to fill out. So what are your hourly costs for paying your publisher, your editor? What's the marketing team costing? And how many hours are you planning? So if it's a major book, lots of hours. If it's a major launch, for example, the one I mentioned on small groups, that'll probably be 80 hours of the marketing team here. because we'll spend a full 2 weeks preparing the 5-week launch. If this is a translation for a 150-page book, that's a good number of editing, revising. If we're actually coaching an author, a first-time author, it can easily be 250 hours of coaching. I know in the English-speaking world, they're more around 80 to 100, but most people that we coach at this point have never written a book, so we spend a lot of time with them. So you fill these numbers out, and they're automatically being divided here by the number of copies that you're going to do on your first print run. And so that's where you can come here and decide. So once you do, editing, sales and marketing, post-production, creating the ebook, I've put audiobook separately now, 250 euros per hour of the finished product. So, it's a small audiobook, 3 hours, whatever. Translation work, you put in how many thousands of words there are here. I think you got thousands, yeah. Word count in thousands. And then the K in French is thousands. So I don't know if you have that in English as well, but you put how many euros are you paying per 1,000 euros to the translator, to perhaps someone who's doing the revision of the translation. And then those numbers add up here as well. And then cover and layout. If you have to pay an advance for the book, you would put it here. If it's a translation, you put the royalty rate here. And then you decide, and this is going to be the big one here, and that's a big topic, is then you put what is a reasonable print run for the first 18 months? How many do I think I can sell in the first 18 months? The idea is I want to try to put the book at a price where in the next 18 months, I'm going to get that money back. So imagine it cost me 15,000 euros of costs. Well, can I sell enough so that in the first year and a half, I get that money back so I can go ahead and start funding the next book? Because otherwise that money is just left in the bookshelves out in the warehouse because I haven't sold the books. And so I maybe run out of money and I'm not able to invest in the next author that comes along with the next great topic that we want to bring to our country. So here in this case, I put the quantity of books, and you get a habit. You can really just put rough numbers of what would it cost to print 2,000 copies at this size of a book. So let's put something a little bit higher here. So in this case, for example, for 2,000 copies of a book, you can put more book information here of how many pages or word count you'd have. See, there's a second tab. And then you come to the last numbers that are going to change everything. So look at if this book is sold at 15 euros as retail price, I will lose 11,000 euros on the first print run of 2,000. So I'd actually have to sell how many to make a profit? For example, if I did a first print run of 5,000, it says my break-even point is I have to sell 4,600 copies to get my money back. And we could be a nonprofit ministry, but we actually have to get the money back or find donors. Otherwise, we go bankrupt if we run out of money on the bank account. So, and we'll talk. That's the second document. We'll talk about how we manage cash flow. But so let's look at this book, and we're like, oh, well, the problem is this is not a translation number. 250 hours of revision is way too high. So let's go back to 80 like the initial template had. And so you see here, now we're like, okay, we need to sell 3,600 copies to break even. Well, that's still a lot of copies for the French-speaking world. Now, maybe in if you're in Portuguese or something and you're working in Brazil, that's an easy number. But you're going to have to look at what is realistic for your language and your country to sell in the first year. And from what I've been told let's say in the non-Christian publishing space, is if a book does not break even within the first 18 months, they don't usually put this book in their back catalog. So they don't keep reprinting it when it does actually run out of stock. They just let the book die. Or they'll even throw away the copies based on how much it costs them to keep them in a warehouse somewhere. So this is very important for the key topic of sustainability of your ministry, is if you're underpricing here, you will eventually just run out of money because all the costs are actually not being covered. And then if you don't sell enough, then all of the costs are being put on a shelf and sleeping here for years. So I know quite a few Christian ministries that have just years and years of overstock, and that's really hurting them. Now they can raise money and stuff, but the easiest thing to do, I would argue, is you've got to start finding ways of opening new channels. Can you sell more of each book? And that's really what we've done in the last 7 years. So we've moved from, on average, 500 copies in the first 12 months to over 1,000 on the first 12 months on average, with some bestsellers hitting, the 4, 5, 6,000 in the first year. So that's a big key. The final one that I forgot here to show you is your administrative coefficient. So that's just literally translated from French. Okay, you can put whatever you want here, but it's to remember the secret or the hidden costs of the rest of your ministry, because we're not putting here heating, we're not putting paying for rent, we're not putting here your staff that do the administrative work, that do the invoicing, that do the shipping. So you've got to remember, well, wait, what's the rest? So very quickly, how I came to this number, and you can do the same thing for your ministry, is look at total costs of administrative staff, of your building, your rent and your electricity and your heating. Look at total costs and then ask yourself, how much do I want to pay these hidden costs with the new books that our ministry publishes each year? That's what we did. And so we said we want 1/4 of our costs to be covered by new books. Another quarter is covered by the back catalog, so books that are older than a year and a half. Another quarter is covered by a specific title in our back catalog. So the Manga Bible here that we've published almost 20 years ago and has been a huge success. French is the best-selling language for the Manga Bible, and we've just recently hit the 700,000 copies sold mark. And so that is definitely allowing us to have that financial sustainability, and that's before our time, actually. But that's 1/4 of our costs that's being covered. And the fourth quarter is covered by our bookstore, where we sell other publishers' books, and we have a margin there. And so new books have to cover 1/4 of our hidden costs. And I saw that if we look at our 20 new titles each year, and we say, okay, we want them to make more money to cover costs, what do I have to do? Like, oh, well, if I multiply the total project by 40%, I increase the total project by 40%, in the end, I'm covering my administrative fees. So that's what this number is. If, of course, you had none of it, look at the total direct costs totally decrease, okay? So, right, the total costs for this books are 20,000, but if I actually count the hidden costs of the administrative team, the building and heating and so on, I'm up to 28,000. So this is just a template. You can do whatever you want with it. You can adjust it, improve it. And you see that if you manage to sell 5,000 copies in the first 12 months or 18 months, you would make a 14% profit margin. The final note here is, what do you want to optimize for? Many publishers, I think, make the mistake of optimizing too quickly for cost. You definitely need to lower costs as well. Every time you can lower costs, you can actually have a lower price for the book and have more sales potentially. But if you do that too soon, you actually have to optimize for very low sales. So many publishers in France will optimize for 500. And so it's academic books that come out and so on. And so they're going to say, okay, we're only doing 500 copies, so we have to spend very little time on the books. We have to not do any marketing on the book, just an email blast that goes out. And we just underpay our translators, right? And so you get this quality that goes down, and you start optimizing in the wrong way too soon for costs. You have to increase sales and lower costs, but it has to be a both and. Yeah, I'm sure this will
Stefan,
cause some questions. Yes, Heather.
just one question about this. Does this look any different if you're then taking the next step and doing print on demand?
Oh yeah, thanks. So yes, I would use the same budget for print on demand. But yes, the mistake is to think, because I did my budget on 2,000 copies, right? if I did my budget on 2,000 copies, I have to do a first print run of 2,000 copies. No, just estimate your first year of sales, but then go ahead and either do a small print run to minimize risk, because imagine you do fail on your on your on your bet. You think you can sell 2,000 copies, but you actually can't. It's better to run out after 2 months because you oversold your first 500 copies and then reprint and reprint. It's really easy these days to do small print runs. Or in the case of print on demand with Amazon, KDP, or that kind of stuff, you actually have still taken the correct cost, and you shouldn't take simply the cost of printing and add a margin. You should actually look at all the secret costs. So that's what I would do if I do only print on demand. I would still look at how much do I want to sell in the first year, because you want to take all your costs divided by what you can sell in the first year. And so based on that, you fix your price, and then you can decide to print less and do 3 reprints in the first year, for example, to simply avoid having too much money sleeping on your shelves if you're not doing print on demand. And print on demand is maybe something we should talk about in the question and answer time, based on where your ministry is, because it's really useful in France, for example, for back catalog, where you just want to keep something available because there's not many books available in French. But I think it can also really reduce your ambition for the title if you have only print on demand, so higher costs of printing, and no copies to bring to bookstalls because you're always just doing a few copies at a time. And the whole idea of having 200 or 300 copies available in your warehouse allows you to sell more because you want to get them out. So yeah, I hope that helps. That's the first document. Back to the slide. You see it again, right? So know the real costs, cost of a book, cost by type of book, and the cost of business. So you saw that I put the cost of business actually in that budget document template. Second key is you need to know the real needs out there where you're ministering, where you're working. So are you listening and asking many questions to the Christians and the pastors that you meet at conferences, at different events? Interact with them and ask them, what are you reading right now? What has recently encouraged you? What do you think is missing right now in bookstores? What kind of tools do you constantly go to? English, for example, to translate yourself because you need a tool. So listen, ask questions, read what's out there on a topic. Think what has been the biggest, what are the biggest topics that have helped you grow recently, and are there good books out in your language on these topics? And the key to sustainability in a ministry is to aim for the eternal topics, the eternal needs of people. So, do books on discipleship, books on marriage, rather than books on, well, we did a book on COVID, so we're a bad example, but rather than books on COVID and a biblical analysis of Trump in office or something, or President Trump. Do things that you can sell for 20, 30 years because they're timeless. So know the real needs and try to identify timeless needs. The third key is know how to price correctly. So I've given you already quite a few tips on how to price correctly, but let's keep going with one more. If your book is good and it solves a real problem, so if you bring out the book on discipleship, the book on understanding new birth, the book on church discipline, whatever it is, people are not looking what's the cheapest book on a topic. They're looking what's the best book on the topic. So really look to translate the best books. Look to publish from local authors. I'd say the best small books on the topic, because it's a trap to try to write the exhaustive, comprehensive book that does 500 pages. You're just not going to sell it. Write a small book that everyone should read on the topic. If you've done that, then you can actually price more than you think, because people are not looking at the price first. They're looking, what's the best book on the topic? So I think that's a trap that I see so many publishing ministries falling for. It was our mistake for years. We were underpricing our books. We thought that if they were cheap, we would get more sales. You actually have to work first on making them the best book, then working on the advertising with the testimonials that people know it's the best book, and then you can sell a lot of copies, just no matter what the price. In fact, this book that has sold 25,000 copies was one of our most expensive books. I was at 20 euros as starting price, whereas many of our books were at 15. And so price is not an obstacle. It's very, very interesting in many countries, okay? I know it's not the case everywhere. And then if you realize from the book budget template, oh, there's no way I can cover all my costs. Well, start somewhere. Say, I'm going to have to price it less than my real costs, but can I find a partner? Can I find a church that would like to buy copies? Can I find a ministry that wants to be behind it? Can the author participate? And then add in the book budget a line for a donation or a line for a big purchase from a ministry that's helping you. But you know that you're building towards sustainability. Okay. Fourth, you've got to know, this is a key to financial sustainability. You've got to know how to sell like crazy. And so I think it's a big mistake to let others do your selling for you. This is something you should master. And I think it's also a big mistake to think that it's based on price, on discounts, or that sort of gadget. It's based on problems. You've got to know, comes back to point 2, knowing the real needs of your audience. If you know what pastors are struggling with, if you know what men are struggling with out there, if you know what young workers are struggling with out there, and you have a book that will help them to spend time with God, even in a busy week, then you've solved a real problem. And then you know how to sell like crazy. So you've got to really be thinking about that all the time through the whole process of the book. Who is going to read this? Who is going to read this? Who is going to read this? And if you are a theology geek, then don't think what you would read. Be looking at who do you want to sell this book to? Who, I'm hoping every Christian will read this. Well, look at what do they read? Do they read many books a year? No, they read small books. They read useful books, practical books. Okay, well, if I want to write a book if I want to publish a book that's going to sell like crazy, I've got to know what people are actually reading and solve the problem for them. So maybe final word on selling like crazy. We were inspired by the book by Jeff Walker, Launch, a very simple book where he shows how he does product launches. And we tried to integrate his product launch formula into our 2 to 3 major books a year, where we'll do between a 5-day launch and a 5-week launch, where we try to go all out and crazy with special offers and partnerships with other ministries. And we make this big event around the book launch. And many times the book has been profitable. So we reached that break-even point that you saw on the template before the book even arrived from the printer. So that's how incredible it can be when a book launch works. It's a lot of work. So you don't want to do it for every book, and it exhausts also all your email subscribers if you do every book as a big book. But when the book comes out, when a book that's translated or from a local author comes out, and you know it's an amazing book, it deserves a major book launch. Okay, and then final, you've got to know the cash flows of your business. So you saw this one coming. If you don't have a cash flow document, you definitely need to start one. I can also give you the template for that. And we'll finish with that very quickly. So I'm going to stop the share again. And we'll just open the second template here for you. So this one is a cash flow document where I've taken out any of the real numbers just because they're real for obvious reasons. But you can see here, I've tried to keep everything connected so you can use it. Okay. And so this is a longer document, but ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude can really help you. And actually YouTube, I'm sure, has great tutorials on how to do this. This is a very standard document. This is not original. where what you're trying to do is, well, let me explain the problem, is you can be very happy that you have lots of sales, but you can actually go bankrupt despite many sales, right? So imagine you sell 100,000 euros worth of books in January of this year. You're so excited. You're like, this is amazing. Oh yeah, there was VAT, so value added tax and shipping costs. So I've got to take that off. But um, I'm fine, right? It's just 104,000 minus seven. We're good. Well, no, because if you sell to a bookstore, you invoiced in January, but they might pay you only um, in in a month, or maybe in 2 months, or in 3 months. So this is a document where you're gonna put your actual sales, your forecasts first, then your actual ones, and then you're gonna come and say, well, what percentage of my clients pay me upfront? Oh, well, 50% purchase on the bookstore, on my online store. And so I'm going to put 50% here, pay right away. So it's cash collectible in the first month. And then 10% pay 30 days later, and 30% pay 60 days later, and 10 more percent, the final 10% pay 3 months after the invoice. And so all of a sudden you have a different picture. It means that if you do 104,000 euros in sales, you're going to get 50% upfront. You're going to be getting 10% the next month. You're going to be 30% of that 104 will be in March, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So this can be a very big trap. There's quite a famous quote that Tim Thornborough would often remind me of, is sales is vanity, profit is sanity, cash is reality, right? So sales is vanity, but it is ministry impact as well. So it's not total vanity. It's also real people buying real books. But sales is vanity ultimately, because we don't have the money in the bank account. Profit is sanity. You want to make sure that you price your book correctly so that you have a profit at the end. But cash is reality. You can be selling your books at a loss in your ministry as long as you have enough donor money, or enough bank loans, or enough past profit. You can still go on very well as long as there's cash in the bank. But you can have had a great year and sold more than ever before and go bankrupt if the sales happen through someone who doesn't ever pay you for the invoice. So this document is very important for all ministries. You can simplify it if you want. I won't take too much time on it, but it's really self-explanatory. In orange here, you've got the costs, so you can refine it as you want, the different costs of your ministry. And then what you want to do is plan for your year. What money will there be on what's the theoretical closing balance of my account here, month after month? And you want to check with reality the actual closing balance. So if you think, oh, I'll have $50,000 on the bank account at the end of the month. Oh, in the end, I had only 40 or only 30. What happened? And so that's where you start doing the forecast compared to the actual entries and actual expenses, and you do the variance, okay? And so you see, okay, wait, what happened? Oh, I got much less cash collected in month minus like 1 and 2. So the 1 month after invoice and 2 months after invoicing, what happened? Oh yeah, they forgot to pay. Okay, and you go and find where that money is lying, sleeping somewhere. So this document as well, I'll send it to you. Just send me an email telling me what you do so we can kind of make acquaintances, and then I'll send it to you. And we can come back to the final slide. Normally you're seeing it, right?
Yep, we can see it.
So that's how I chose to divide it. There's hours and hours. Each, of course, template could be one webinar, right? On how to cost a book, how to handle cash flow, how to do a book launch. But I thought it'd be more helpful to connect all 5 of them together. And my email address is right here, Stéphane. Kind of looks like Stephanie because it's French. Stéphane at blfeditions.com, and I'll send you the 2 documents with pleasure. I don't know if I can see the questions as well, Heather, but I will try.
We've got a few here. I'm happy to read these to you.
Okay, I found the chat. I'm
Okay.
good.
There's one in the Q&A that came in, and that question is, how do you scale from two salaried employees in 2019 to 15 employees now? What are the initial steps and best practices for an owner CEO who is wearing many hats?
Yeah. Um, so your first hires are going to be super critical. And French laws are such that we definitely went with lots of freelancers at first. It's just so much faster. I don't have to have my board's approval for hiring a freelancer, whereas there's a lot of obligations if you hire someone with a contract, um, yeah, and it's more costs. So I would definitely recommend freelancers if it's a legal thing. If it's allowed in your country, you can go so much faster, and it's a great way to test right away. Do I like working with this person? Are they aligned with what we're trying to do? Do they bring good energy to the team? Like it's just fun to work with them. And then many of the freelancers have come on staff full time, or whatever they were willing to do based on their phase of life. And then some freelancers are almost like on staff, except they don't want to have a full-time contract or something, and so they prefer being paid a bit more freelancer, but have that flexibility. Um, and then what I'd say is you want to take really people that are quite autonomous because you're going to be growing constantly. So if you have to show them every step all the time, and they don't find solutions themselves, you're going to quickly not be able to sustain hiring more people. But yeah, at this point, I still find it hard having 15 or 20 people because you still need to be constantly saying, well, are we doing this? Right now, we're at a scale where we obviously have people that are working on too many projects at once, and they would be better served to be focused. But that's the current phase of where we are at. Hey, Alex, I see you're also here.
Um, and you've already answered the question about getting the Excel tables, so people can email you to get those.
Yep.
We had a few questions come in ahead of time, and let me ask you one of those. This question was, how do we strike a balance between faith in God to grow readership and using existing tools to make publishing sustainable?
Yeah. Yeah, it's even my intro was about that too. As you say, why listen to what we've done? I feel very, very grateful because so many things that we did that I think were good things could have failed, and many things that we did failed as well. We're constantly trying things, and so you think, well, did we fail because we were, prideful, arrogant? Did we succeed because it was just a miracle of pure grace? I don't have the answer, but I do believe that we should be very good stewards of the resources that God gives us. And so we should do everything we can to, not have books that have crazy costs. When we have a book that goes out of budget, it's a failure. It's a failure. So we have to be good stewards and take corporate steps in a way to not allow that to happen again. And at the same time, let's be praying. Let's be praying constantly. So let's be praying at the beginning of our meetings. Let's be praying for our authors that as they're working. It is true that God could allow the author to write an excellent book in 50 hours less than planned, needing less coaching on our part, less cost on our part. And so let's make sure that we do both. I don't have more than an answer than that, unfortunately, but it's definitely, I think we should be careful to over spiritualize, and that it's just we'll pray and the books will sell. No, pray and then work your head off to be everywhere. And maybe just on a side note on that, because we didn't talk too much about channels, but really take into account how small your ministry is, right? You can't be everywhere all at once. So focus on where do you think the low-hanging fruit are, but don't have a mindset of, in English we'd say of a zero-sum game where you want them to always buy from you. It's okay if you sell through someone. It's okay if you let the church get part of the sale. It's okay if you give this to a door-to-door salesman and he gets half the money. As long as you planned it into your book budget, try to be everywhere. And so I see some ministries, they're like, oh no, we don't let other websites sell because it's an online sale, so we could have it all on our website. No, most people don't know you exist. Have it everywhere. Same thing for ebooks and audiobooks. Have them everywhere. Do not imagine that everyone knows who you are.
That's
And that's
great.
also, I think, kind of in the spiritualizing thing where it's like, well, we'll pray and people will come to us. Like, no, go where they are.
Yeah, that's great. We're going to be talking a little bit about that in the next webinar. So that's excellent. Um, uh, another question. Let me see. Oops, going through the ones that came in advance.
Yeah, I'll send Excel spreadsheets. Both files are in Excel spreadsheets. Inge, are you from Germany, Inge? I have a very good friend whose name is Inge. Or rather,
Um,
two of my colleagues here, their mother is Inge.
so another question is how to turn um, let's see. This is about Africa as a self-publishing economy.
Yep.
Um, we're mostly trade publishers, including Christians, and are still trying to build book selling and distribution infrastructure that can turn into profitable traditional publishers. How can we reach readers who buy books?
Well, I would have to know more about your specific country. Um, um,
This is
but
Uganda, but
Uga
yeah.
Uganda, I mean, I expect everyone is reading books in one format or another. It might be actually audiobooks. You'd have to look at what are people listening, but I do believe from feedback I get from people out in the field is that there are like prosperity gospel books almost everywhere now in Africa.
Mm.
Clearly, people are buying those books. Are they reading them? I don't know. But their books are out there, and can we offer better alternatives to them? I definitely think there's more readers than you think. Um, what could you do to find them? So one thing we do is give away free books. Um, so our first club, we call it the BLF Club. We were giving a PDF away every month because we had a back catalog of about 200 titles, and now we give access to 50 books, but it's in our app, so there's no PDFs to share, and it's not piratable in the same way. It's not easy to pirate, let's say. But give away a book, or give away excerpts, and go on the social media that works in your country and um, share it widely and see who's reacting, and then offer them more excerpts or the next chapter or whatever to those people. There are more readers than you think. You could do contests where you say, "Hey guys, everyone who launches a book club, yeah, you can do 100 things, but anyone who launches a book club, take a photo of your gathering together and send me a photo, and then every 10th person who sends me will get 100 free books or whatever for the next book club, or 10 whatever is modest. But uh, there are many more readers than you think, but they're probably not reading your books, and that's where you have to go and find them.
Another question here from Meva. Since we mainly sell through social media, we promoted a book once, and a lot of people were interested and asked about the price. But as soon as they found out the price, very few of them bought the book. We thought the price was the main obstacle. What do you think?
I imagine you're in Africa. As you asked the question, that seems to be a very typical question we get, is focus on the price. But I don't believe it's because it's a focus purely on the price. It's because many clients don't even have a credit card or a
Mm.
PayPal account, and they cannot pay at all. So I don't know if you have an easy way to take payments in whatever country you're working in. But I really don't believe price is the obstacle. If they have a true problem that can be truly solved by your book, normally they're willing to pay. But yeah, if it's in Africa and you don't have an easy way to pay, then it's often, I find their question, we have 15 countries in Africa that speak French. That question is kind of like, what's the price? Can you donate it to us? Because they're used to having the book for
Mm.
free. Um, And so that's where you have to either have a very simple way for them to pay with, mobile money, mobile money, orange money, mobile pay, those sort of systems where you say, hey, it's a very small fee. It's a $1, $2, pay something. I think they should pay something on the long run. They should have the habit of paying something, even if you're finding donor money to pay the real cost because they're not ready. But Africa has been very, very badly hurt by too many free books, and so they're used to everything being free in many of our French-speaking countries, and so there we have to slowly get them used to having paid books. I think giving them away for free behind a sign-up wall is a good way of doing it. That's what we've been doing now for a few years, because at least you have their contact, and the moment they unsubscribe, they lose access to the bookstore to the books.
Just a comment here from Inga.
Yeah.
I realize many buyers here in Tanzania need to prepare to buy the book, but some buy in the end with us or with other booksellers. Um, Kirk has a question here. How did you get connected with a coach?
I believe I just dared and asked Tim. So we were exchanging some emails, and I dared ask him. So yeah, ask questions to different publishers. If you have meetings with people that sell international rights, that means it's often a vice president of his division, and then you can just ask them as well for advice. Yeah. Take anyone that you think is a few years ahead of you. If you have to be more modest because you can't get the CEO of a company, take whoever is a few years ahead of you that you hope to have learn from and go for it.
That's great. And I
Uh,
would encourage you if
yeah,
you're, go ahead. If you
no,
have
go for it. I was on the
I
next
would
topic.
encourage you if you're connected with our MAI WhatsApp publisher group, you can ask people on there if you could meet with them. We also have Ramon Rocha, who's available to meet with you by Zoom, and at times he can come and visit in person with different people. So he's a
Yeah,
good resource as well.
cool.
Um,
About
Somebody's
the book
asking,
price, Alice is saying even local buyers in Rwanda complain about the price to be expensive. Now, I don't know the culture, Alice, but I would wonder if it's just not um, normal. That's the opening negotiation on the market
mm,
to complain about the price. If I go and buy vegetables here at the local market, especially if it's someone from North Africa, you don't start by saying, "Oh, they look nice and they're a good price." You always say, "Oh, they're kind of expensive. What's this about?" And you start there, and from that point, you start a discussion and you chat and you tease each other. And so I don't know if there's some of that in the culture in Rwanda or not.
somebody is asking about how to join the MAI Publisher WhatsApp group. You can just email mai@maiglobal.org to ask that very question, and Mia can get you connected with that. Um, we have,
We didn't come back on print on demand.
yep.
I don't know if we wanted to or not, because it was important. We don't actually have as much experience with it because our market's large enough that we don't think we want to go there. Um, I don't know if you had things you wanted to add, Heather, on that.
No, I mean, I would just say just that people who do have print on demand options available and a new or very small market, it can be a good way to get started and a way to be able to publish some titles that would be difficult to sell at a large quantity. I know a number of the publishers in MAI's community have trouble with over ordering
Yeah,
and then ending up with a lot of inventory that then ages and is not sellable
yeah.
eventually.
It's good that you asked because I was totally going to forget to mention that is that that's a book budget. So I'll say it one more time here. That it's a book budget, but just because you budgeted for what you can sell in the first year, don't take the risk of always printing what your ideal sale is. Go for much less at first, and you think, okay, I think I can sell 1,000 copies, but I'm printing 200 to start, and just reprint, reprint, reprint. It's better to have less margins on the short term and have cash in the bank that you can pay salaries that you can reinvest in the next book.
That's
Yep.
great. Boy, we've got a number of general questions here about connecting with other publishers. Again, I would say, MAI's got our WhatsApp group that you can join, and also there's some other online groups you can find
Yeah.
out on our website about. Go ahead.
I think Sergey's question is a bit more in our own country.
Ah, yes, okay.
There is in France for sure. There is an issue uh, of competition, and where we don't see ourselves. Um, so our chairman of BLF, I think, does a very good job at framing this. And if it helpful for you, Sergey, he talks about the zero sum game, language, but that's not an image. The image that he says is, "Hey guys, we're not fighting over a small cake of readers.
Mm,
Readers like to read books. And so a reader can actually read your books and our books. And what we're trying to do is to bake a bigger cake.
mm,
Most Christians don't read many books. How can we create reading cultures where instead of having maybe 25% of Christians, and maybe that's optimistic, read books, how can we have 75% of Christians read books on an annual basis? And so then all of a sudden you're like, wait, that's not competition. But we do have that struggle, Sergey, and I don't have all the answers because it's a constant effort. Because I think in many countries we are both publishers and online bookstores as well, so there's a
mm.
double competition. And maybe sometimes in France there are also physical bookstores run by the publishers. So it's kind of a messy relationship. But I find our chairman's image helpful. We've got to remember they're going to buy many books. If books start being a blessing in their life, they can buy 10 in a year. So let's collaborate.
Yeah, that's a really good perspective. We're all participating in growing God's kingdom, right? And when we're just competing with one another, especially in contexts where there isn't a strong reading culture, we're
Yeah,
actually hurting one another when we can be helping each other. So that's excellent. Um, a few other, let's
I can't
see.
answer ISBN number of costs. Nayamoro, is that Japanese? I don't know. But because each country is very different. But yeah, check online. France is free. I know that China is, you have to buy them, for example. I was chatting with someone. So yeah, and it's a way of control. I don't know at all.
There's another question here from Daphros. My friend Dr. David Langford is raising funds in the U.S. to equip our DRC schools with mini libraries. Thank you for the generous discounts. However, I'm wondering, is there a way we could secure copyrights for fundamental books and have them printed in Africa or China at a lower cost, thereby advancing the gospel more effectively in our schools?
Hello, Jean Pasteur. Yeah, we were just exchanging WhatsApp messages with David Langford this morning. So, um, yeah, you can sometimes negotiate directly with the publisher. We definitely are fine with that. And so we'd have to talk about it. But each publisher will have its own priorities, own rules. We work with a print on demand mission, like partners in Congo Kinshasa, Madagascar, Niger. Now they're setting up in Ivory Coast, and Cameroon is already set up. So five different countries that have print on demand setups. We give them all of our PDFs, and they can print the books there. And it's really cool. I mean, we had a bit more than a year ago, we brought out a book on the prosperity gospel, and they had a conference with I think 300 pastors the weekend after the book came out. So before it was even in bookstores in France, it was given away to 300 pastors at a conference in Niger. And so that's the amazing world that we live in of print on demand and the web. And so yeah, they paid us a small sum for every book that they gave away. And that's something that you can probably, with all languages, come on agreements. As long as you say, okay, the books will only be given away in this specific country, publishers often are willing to make a deal.
Great. One other question here. How to start a publishing house in Christian University in the Caribbean. I would encourage you to connect with Ramon Rocha on our team. You can email
Yeah.
that MAI at
Look at Tim's webinar as well.
yes, the one
Uh,
that he has
from
on our
first
find on our
from
website. Yep.
first book to balance book.
Yep. Excellent. Yeah, but you can email us at mai@maiglobal.org to ask more related to that. I think I think we've covered all the questions. Is there anything else you want to share, Stefan? This has been excellent. People have
My
been really
pleasure.
engaged with your content, so it's been really
My
good.
pleasure. I love book publishing, and so it's always nice to think through it with you guys. Um, I saw one here that we didn't answer. How tough is it to enter an agreement on an ebook between a publisher and a bookshop? It can be very easy or very complicated based on who you're working with. So I don't know, you sound like an author who would like to get your ebook on a platform. That can often be quite easy. And then we tend to go for half-half in terms of the authors that want to sell their ebooks on our bookstore. But it also depends if, again, the question from our brother Sergey, if you're a publisher and you want to sell with another publisher, sometimes there's competition views, and it's just really, really hard to get catalogs shared.
Great. One other question here from Bella. Do you have any suggestions for topics for women?
Oh, I'm be the last person that should answer that. But if you're translating, He Gives More Grace from the Good Book Company is one of my wife's favorites. So, and then uh, thanks, Alex. Yes, my wife is German. That's why Alex likes me. Uh, yeah, He Gives More Grace, if you're translating from English, is really good. And Alex is not translating it yet um, into German. But otherwise, just ask women, go to women's Bible studies, to women's group, listen to what they're talking about. What discouragements are they facing? What are the questions they have when they read the Bible? Just ask more questions. And there's tons of books out there that they don't know they want yet. And it's behind the questions that they're asking.
Excellent. I
My
think
pleasure.
we're ready to wrap up. Is there anything else?
Oh, that was fun. And
All
thanks for
right,
all the
excellent.
questions, guys. And until next time, send me an email. Tell me where you are, what you're doing, and I'll send you the templates.
Very good. Okay, we're going to do our closing slides here. Um, we're really grateful for what you shared with us today, Stefan. Thank you very much. This webinar has been recorded. All participants will receive a link to the recording today, and it will be soon, sorry, it will be soon posted on the MAI YouTube channel, which you can find. Our handle is at MAI Lit World, LITTWORLD. We want to know how we can serve you better through our webinars. There's a QR code on your screen and a link in the chat panel where you can go to take a very short survey. Make sure you look out for our next webinar in English scheduled in April 14th at 1 p.m. UTC time. It's entitled How to Get Your Ideas to Stick, Building a Market for Your Book Before You Write It. And it's being presented by me.
There we go. And it's exactly what we need to do to sell a book.
So I hope you'll join. The webinar will draw from my many years of experience prior to MAI in global organizational communications and journalism leadership. MAI regularly offers training in writing, editing, and publishing, both online and in person. We encourage you to go to maiglobal.org to find out more and to discover more resources and information. So definitely those of you that were asking some of those general publishing questions, I think you'll find some resources that can help you on our website. So thank you to all of you who joined and participated with us. I'm Heather Peebles, your host, along with Mia Toganon, our technical assistant. The QR code for our survey will be going back up very soon. And if you haven't already filled that out, that will give you a chance to be able to provide some feedback before you sign off. The survey just takes a minute or two. Until next time, keep writing, everyone. Thank you very much.